What is a woman?
I'm sorry, what is your question?
What is a woman?
What part of this bill are you referring to with this question?
I'm asking you to answer the definitive nature of your statement. You've asserted from the front mic multiple times.
When a woman tells me they're a woman, I know they're a woman because I trust them to give me that answer.
So can you define a woman?
I just did. When they tell me they're a woman, then they're a woman. It's not for me.
Can you define that?
I just did. That's my answer to you.
I'm really trying to understand what your position is here. Is it your position that, according to you, because this has not yet occurred in Texas, but has happened in other states, that Texas should wait for it to happen here in order for this legislature to act?
My position, I would say, is twofold. One, this isn't happening in Texas. We're the Texas legislature. We need to solve the problems of Texas. Two, I don't think trans athletes in sports is a problem. And so not only are we, quote unquote, saving
okay, let me stop you there and ask you, are there, in other states, are there biological males that are playing in female sports and women's sports?
Yeah, as I laid out, there are 37 known cases throughout the country in the history.
37.
37.
Okay, so the answer to your question is
that's
yes.
Trans athletes. It may not all be biological.
There are other instances where biological males are competing against biological females. Is that accurate?
Based on their birth, yes, I would say so.
Biological males are competing or attempting to compete against. Okay, let me ask you genuinely. I want to know your answer to this. As I try to wrap my arms around this issue, is to you, is it fair for a biological male to compete against a biological female?
I think if they are trans, you're talking about a trans woman competing against...
Is it fair for a biological male to compete against a biological female?
I think it is fair for a trans woman to compete in women's sports.
Is it fair for a biological male at birth to compete against a biological female?
If they are now a trans woman and have been, yes, I think that is fair. If they are a trans woman, yes. And if we need to solve something, let's look at how the Olympics have done it. I don't have all those details in front of me. Let's look at ways to make sure we keep it fair.
I think that I have a daughter. You have two daughters, correct?
Yes, I do.
And I have a daughter as well, Charlotte. She's 12. And I don't know if Charlotte's going to continue playing athletics. She plays volleyball and basketball. I'm trying to get her into golf, and she might decide to pursue collegiate athletics. She might not. But Representative Busey, as a father to two young girls, and as a father to a young daughter myself, I'm struggling with this question. If Charlotte does, in fact, continue to put in all of the effort and all of the training, all of the work that it takes to become a collegiate athlete, and she tries out for a team or she attempts to get onto a collegiate team and her spot is taken by a biological male, what do I tell my daughter? What do I tell Charlotte when she comes to me and said, Dad, this doesn't seem fair. This doesn't seem fair that a biological male has taken my spot on the team.
Well, I guess in my example, what I would talk to my daughters about is, I want you to play.
No, her spot has been taken on the team. And she says, Dad, this doesn't seem fair. I want to know from your perspective, as a father to two young girls, what's your advice to me as a dad? What do I tell my daughter in that situation?
I would say it's fair to everyone to get to compete, and I want that trans athlete to be included also. That's what I would say, and we're going to work at it, and we're going to keep trying, and we're going to give our best effort, and we don't always succeed. Just as I've ran for this office and lost before, we don't always succeed.
A biological male that I think you and I could agree that is by very nature of him being a biological male has different bone structure, different muscle structure. He's faster, he's stronger, he's taller, and he has taken her spot on a team because he is physically able to perform better than she is. But he is still a biological male, and she's a biological female, and she has lost her spot on the team to him. What do I tell her? How is that fair? How is it the pro-women's position, Representative Busey, to allow men to take women's spots on the team?
Well, I think the dialogue is wrong. We're talking about trans women, not men. I think that needs to be corrected at the top. Two, are you talking about at the collegiate level, or are you talking about at the high school level?
Well, I'm really talking about all levels, but this bill specifically applies to the collegiate level.
Sure.
So tell me about the collegiate level.
Well, I think those are athletes competing at the highest level, and they need to compete at the highest level. And if that's against anybody, then compete and earn your spot. And compete at the highest level, and we will come out and we will support you.
But
and you
don't
will
we
learn
expect,
teamwork.
Representative Busey, don't we expect the rules of engagement, the rules of the sport, of the contest to be fair? Is that not underlying all of our athletic competitions at every level? Is fairness not a fundamental requirement for fair sports?
I think
for good sports.
All women, trans women, cis women can compete together. They can learn teamwork. They can learn camaraderie. They can learn friendship. They can learn how to win together, compete together, lose together, and they will benefit from that. And I don't want to exclude any part of our society from having the ability to compete at that level.
I just cannot believe it is the pro-women's position for us to allow such unfairness, such fundamental unfairness, so as to allow biological men to take their spots, to compete against them, to win all the awards, to essentially write them out of fair competition. I cannot believe that is the pro-women's spot. And according to you, there's nothing I could tell my daughter that would help her make sense of it.
Well, so according to me, your daughter, I believe you said, is 12. I have young daughters. We've already banned this, unfortunately, in high school sports, but as someone that's run a high school sports league for 16 years, for the last handful of those years that allowed it, we did not have these challenges. It happened. Teamwork was built. Camaraderie was built. People didn't feel excluded. They felt included, including more people. Having the whole community get to participate was a lesson well learned. And I hope my daughters learn that same lesson. Let's not push people out because they may be better. Let's bring people in and work together, as we do on some days on this floor really well when we work.
Mr. Schaefer, for what purpose?
The gentleman yield for some questions.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman yields for questions.
Mr. Busey, I was listening to the exchange that you had with Representative Leach, and I want to make sure I have a correct understanding of some of your responses. When he asked you if it was okay for a male to compete against a woman, your answer was that you believe it's fair for a trans woman to compete against other women, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. I believe in an inclusive Texas, and I believe in that.
Okay, but you would not agree that a man should compete against a woman?
I think, one, this bill isn't directly addressing that. Two, we've done that historically in sports.
Okay.
And
so you would,
that's fine, yes.
Okay, so
I'm trying to protect trans women's rights to get to be inclusive in our state.
Okay, I think I understand you. So you would acknowledge that there's a place for women's competition and for men's competition. You're okay with those distinctions?
Yes.
Okay.
I am not okay with discriminating against trans women in the state of Texas.
So I'm an athletic director, and I have the men's competition and the women's competition, and you believe that a trans woman can compete with the women, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm the athletic director, and I have students that I have to send one way or the other, and I need to make this distinction. Can you tell me?
No, the individual makes that distinction,
okay,
sir. The individual determines who they are in life and who they will be. Okay. We don't make that as a state. We don't make that as an athletic director. That is up to the individual.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Will you please extend the time, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Schaefer moves to extend the gentleman's time. His objection, chair hears none. Time extended.
Okay, so as I was saying, you both agree male competition, women competition, correct? And
yes.
you allow for the what you say is a trans woman to compete against the women, correct?
Yes. Well, okay. I don't now because we banned it.
Okay. What is a woman?
I'm sorry, what is your question?
What is a woman?
What part of this bill are you referring to with this question?
I'm asking you to answer the definitive nature of your statement. You've asserted from the front mic multiple times.
When a woman tells me they're a woman, I know they're a woman because I trust them to give me that answer.
So can you define a woman?
I just did. When they tell me they're a woman, then they're a woman. It's not for me.
Can you define that?
I just did. That's my answer to you.
Mr. Busey, can you define it without using the word? Because for you to say a woman is a woman is not a definition. I'm asking you to define the term without using the word.
I
because
trust
if we're in
you to
positions
tell
of
me what gender you are, and I trust everybody on this floor to tell me what gender they are, or to not tell me, because it's none of my business.
Okay, so if I just decide that I'm a woman, then I can go compete against the women.
I trust
Because you trust me to make that
women
decision.
to make that decision.
You
Yes,
trust
sir,
me
I
to
do.
make that decision?
Yes, sir, I do.
So you would think it would be okay
I believe
for
in a
me.
Texas that's inclusive, sir.
So I just want to understand that your definition of a woman is that it is whatever anyone says it is.
I trust people. I trust them to be who they are in their own body. I
Okay,
trust
so
them to get
it's-
to be a part of this society. I do not support legislation that discriminates people getting to be included with all of us in the great state of Texas.
So if a person who has asserted to the whole world that they are a man, and now they've graduated high school and they're a freshman, and they decide they want to go play basketball, but they couldn't make the men's team, can they go to the athletic director at their university and say, I'm a woman, I'm trying out for the women's basketball team?
I don't think that's how any of the regulating works. What are you?
Well,
can you
what-
point to something you're talking about?
By your
Are
definition,
you just talking
that's
hypotheticals? You're talking about something that's bill. You're coming up with scenarios, try to get me to change my answer on something. I'm going to trust trans people in the state of Texas.
well, we actually have people that are in charge of these universities who have to make these decisions.
And you don't trust them to do so, right?
Well,
so you want to
I
pass a
trust
bill
them to do
telling them
so,
what to do.
But as lawmakers, we're charged with giving them clear guidance. We want to give them clear guidance about what the law is. And so, again, I'm going to ask you, what is a woman?
Did you not like my answer the first 5 or 6 or 7 times you asked that question, sir?
But you need to be able to define that. So if you have a
Why
person
do I
who's
need it?
claimed
This
to be...
isn't my bill. Why do
But
I need to define
if
that?
you have a person who has claimed to be a man their entire life and comes into college and now wants to compete against the women, doesn't the athletic director need to know what a woman is?
This is a made-up falsehood based on nothing happening in this country or in this state. You can't point to an example, and you
I
sure
actually think
can't
this
point
is
to
a
an example in the state of
question-
Texas, and I trust our colleges to handle that, and they don't need to be regulated on issues that aren't happening.
I think this
I'm
is
also not the bill author, and you're asking me to define things in a bad bill. I'm not going to do it.
I think this is a question, wouldn't you agree, rooted in science and biology, that you should be able to answer from the front microphone what a woman is.
Wait, is this a science and biology bill? Is that what we're talking about here? Is that what's before us?
I think you're having
Are you
trouble
asking
with the
questions
basic
about this
definitions
bill or
of
my
Mr.
amendment?
Busey.
You want to read my amendment, sir? I don't think it has to deal with that.
Mr. Schatzline, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Yes,
The gentleman
I will.
yields for questions. Gentleman yields.
Thank you. So, Representative Busey, do you believe that there are differences in male body composition, biological male body composition, and biological female composition?
Well, what are we talking about, at birth?
At any stage of life?
Do I believe that there are differences between men and women? Yes. Yeah.
Did you know that male athletes are on average 15.7% heavier than female athletes?
Is that true after they've transitioned and gone through treatments and hormone?
Absolutely. Did you
It
know
is.
that male
What are you basing
athletes are
that off?
7.4% taller
What's your source on that?
than female athletes? This is actually from a study on Baylor College of Medicine in 2021.
And you're looking at what now?
A study from the Baylor College of Medicine. So, to answer my question, do you know that male athletes are 7.4% taller than female athletes as well? On average.
I'm sorry. I missed your question.
Are you aware that male athletes are on average 7.4% taller than female athletes?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, well, it's a known fact. Do you believe that having biological males compete in women's sports provides more or less opportunities for our daughters?
I believe that having trans women not be discriminated against and compete in women's sports provides more opportunity for the children and young adults of the state of Texas.
Here's a better question. Do you believe it's fair for a biological man, because that's who we're talking about, to receive a scholarship that would have otherwise gone to a biological woman?
I believe that trans women should be allowed to compete in the state of Texas, at all levels, and that the colleges are handling this issue just fine.
I believe they should be able to compete as well in their biological sexes competition. Do you believe that biological males should be able to enter our daughters' locker rooms?
I believe that trans women should be treated equally and that the state of Texas should not discriminate against any Texan.
So just to clarify, you believe that biological males should be able to enter our daughters' locker rooms
I
and
believe
undress
that
in front
trans
of them?
women should not be discriminated against by this body or by this state.
Just to clarify, what you're saying is you believe that biological men should be able to undress in a locker room in front of our daughters.
I believe that the state of Texas should never condone discrimination, including against trans women in the state of Texas.
And do you believe that to be the case in all sports, that biological men should be able to compete against biological women in all sports?
We should not discriminate against trans women in the state of Texas. We shouldn't do it from this front mic or from the back mic, and we shouldn't do it in the laws we pass.
And
we're
just to
in
clarify,
danger of doing that today.
Just to clarify, let's just indulge me for a moment. You believe that biological men should be able to compete against our young women in basketball?
I'm sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear the question.
You believe that biological men should be able to compete against biological women in basketball?
I believe that trans women should be able to compete in women's sports.
How about wrestling?
I believe that you mean women, men, height? I mean, I run a youth sports league. We have wrestling. Wrestling's based on height. It's based on weight.
Okay.
You've got weight classes. I believe it's 15 levels.
How about in boxing?
You're the wrestling expert, though, from the back.
How about in boxing? You think that a biological man should be able to beat up on a girl inside of a ring?
I'm sorry, you want a man to beat up on a girl?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I don't
do you
think a
believe
man should beat up on a girl. No, I do not think that.
So you would believe that
I
we
believe
shouldn't
that
allow...
trans women should be able to compete in any and all sports of women's
So
sports.
you don't acknowledge
but I don't
that-
believe adult men should be beating up on girls.
You
which is
don't
what I think
acknowledge
just
that
asked
your
about.
definition of a trans woman is, in fact, a biological man who is going through transition.
My definition of a trans woman is a trans woman. She tells
a
me she's a
biological
trans
male.
woman, then I'm going to trust her and I'm not going to discriminate against a fellow Texan.
Right. So just to be clear, final question. You believe that a biological man should be able to enter into our daughters' locker rooms, compete against them, remove their scholarships,
why are you mixing
and take away
men with
opportunities for our
daughters?
daughters?
I don't think adult men should be going into our daughters' locker rooms ever.
I would agree with you on that. I don't think
well,
biological
then
men should.
is that your question? Because that bill does not deal with adults and children, which is what your question is.